Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Sal Panici, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. From the bottom of my heart, I cannot thank you enough for being here. So like we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. So with your permission, we're going to start with where you were born and then go all the way up to today, and then we can talk about what you're working on for today and or tomorrow. Okay?
Sure.
Sounds great. Thanks for being here, buddy. So
Well,
where
thanks
were
for
you born? Where were you born?
Where I was born in Paterson, New Jersey.
Okay.
My father actually grew up with Lou Costello. Those people who don't know Abbott and Costello. And I grew up by the Passaic Falls, which is the highest falls on the East Coast, other than Niagara.
Yeah.
What else? It was a wonderful place to grow up at that point in time, no longer. Sorry, Paterson.
Yeah.
Right now, I live in Woodland Park, which used to be called West Paterson, and they spent over $1 million to change it to Woodland Park. So they created us into a cemetery to disassociate themselves with Paterson.
Uh-huh.
And now Pattersonians are slowly, infiltrating Woodland Park as well. So it did no good.
Making the move over. So have you literally been there your entire life?
Yeah, I've been in this area my entire life. That the house I used to be my grandmother's. And back in the 30s, I think she bought it for like $5,000.
Yeah.
So it's gone through a few remodels, and it's worth a little bit more than $5,000.
Yeah.
Because I come back when cars, a Cadillac used to cost $5,000, brand new.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of changes over the years that just amaze me.
Yeah, it's been amazing, huh? So let me ask you this. So growing up, who was the most influential person to you in your life?
I guess my mom.
Okay.
I have to say, I wrote about her in a book I wrote called A Life Well Lived.
Okay.
And apparently there are a lot of lives well lived. I didn't research the title, but if anybody's interested, you can go on Amazon and put my name along with it, and it'll come up.
Perfect.
She was a unique individual.
Yeah.
A no nonsense lady. Nobody really could put anything over on her. She's totally American. She's first generation here.
Yeah.
But she married the wrong man.
Oh.
I guess. He's the reason why I'm here, but still, as far as marriage goes, she married the wrong man. He was an alcoholic and a gambler, and the two together, the one alone is bad. Two together is, a disaster.
Yeah.
So, many nights we three kids woke up to them fighting and her sliding across the kitchen floor because he punched her or whatever. Finally, she got up the nerve, I was thinking it was about 10-ish, to throw him out. And sadly enough, his belongings ended up going into one green garbage bag. So at that point, that she didn't want to go on welfare. She was not, at that point, she was not the right color to be on welfare, unfortunately. Racism was even prevalent back then. Yeah. So she had odd jobs. She was a crossing guard. And finally, she ended up working in an institution for physically deformed children. And she absolutely loved it. She loved going to work. She loved working overtime. And it kind of gave her a purpose in life to, I guess, give back to these kids that kind of were abandoned just because of their physicality. Yeah. But she learned to drive, which not a lot of women back then drove. she was Miss Leadfoot. I mean, you see her car coming, and she was gone. And my brother was in law enforcement, and everybody knew her car that was associated with law enforcement in the area, and she stopped getting tickets because of my brother. But she was certainly a speed demon. And yeah, my mother would never say not do anything, but she would say, "You really want to do that?" You know, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then it gave you pause to think, "Do I really want to do that?" Sorry, that I kind of. She loved the theater. She loved Broadway, and we went a lot. She joined Broadway ticket societies where they have bus rides and whatever to go in. She was a great audience, you know, for that. And I have some stories in the book about her and our trip, you know, into the city. But yeah, I mean, she insisted yeah, we didn't have any money for special things, you know, growing up, but a local high school was an expensive high school. It was a private high school back then. And my brother went there for 2 years. He got kicked out because it was my brother.
Oh.
He had his own issues. But then she insisted I go there, even though she couldn't pay for it. And I was touting myself. I was a very good student, primarily because we couldn't afford TVs here and there. So I had nothing else to do but study.
Right.
And at that point, they really couldn't expel me because I was their best student in that particular grade.
Oh
so the Salesians kind of worked along with me, and every first of the month that they call out people whose payments were late, and I was always on that list. But I got through 4 years of Don Bosco Tech, no longer exists. Great guidance counselor who became a very good friend, Father Paul. He actually filled out college applications for me because I had no desire to go. I couldn't afford to go to college.
Right.
So I ended up going to Seton Hall based on his pushing me, and I ended up going to Seton Hall University and only spending about $2,000 for the whole 4-year education.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a
blessing.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't think about these things until you're way past them, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But you appreciate it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like
absolutely.
you appreciate your mom, you appreciate that, right? Because he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to.
No, absolutely not.
That was all pure love, baby. That was all pure love.
Yep. And that's why everybody needs to give back or help out whenever they can.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. And that's part of what we do with our podcast is we get people's stories. And what we find is there are people that God throws in their path. Okay. And they, when these people who are accomplished, highly accomplished in whatever it is they're doing, don't have the time, but they make the time to pull a young person aside and say, hey, you're doing this wrong. Hey, you need to go this way instead of that way, right? Our mission, because they poured into us, is to pour into other people, right? Pay it forward. It's what we do, right?
Absolutely.
I'll bet you to this day you do that. I'll bet to this day you do that. And I'll bet you do it in honor of all those people that helped you, including your mom, including that father, right? All those people that helped you, right? You pay it forward because, that's probably part of why you wrote the book.
Yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, if you'll email me the link to your book on Amazon, we'll put that in the description so people can go to it.
Okay.
Okay. So, what did you have a favorite subject in high school?
It wasn't sports. I can tell you that. And we have pretty good sports teams. I was the type of sports person that everybody made a fuss about not to have them on their team.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that didn't work out. I was an architectural draftsman. I guess that was my high school preparatory major, if you will. Yeah. That was fun. The brother that taught that was an excellent artist. He was just unbelievable. I think he was from Yugoslavia. but he was a character. I loved English. In school I was an English minor. In
Okay.
college I was an English minor. And I had a great math teacher.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not a math person, but he could make you understand calculus and algebra and everything else. And then he passed away. He passed away when I was a junior.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's yeah, but there are people that if they have a grasp of it and can impart it to others, they're really, really special people.
Oh yeah, they absolutely are. I totally agree with that. So you got your degree from Seton Hall. Your degree in what?
I was a communication major.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I always wanted to work in TV in some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
And when I graduated, I don't know if you know the name, Bob Wessler used to be a big muckety muck at CBS in New York,
Okay.
and he was a graduate of Seton Hall.
Okay.
This was Vietnam time, and I was
Yeah.
either going to be drafted or have to join the National Guard. Either way, I was out of pocket for like 6 months.
Right.
And by the time I got back, he was transferred to Chicago, so
Oh, wow.
that went out the window.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I worked in Prudential Insurance. They did training tapes for their sales force, so I worked on productions for that. But then their production season ended,
Oh,
and every 2 to 3 years, I found myself working in industrial advertising.
okay.
And then a very good friend of mine who worked at the last company, industrial advertising, that I worked at, said, "Why don't you try retail? They never lay anybody off." So at that point, we had a newspaper here called the Newark Star Ledger, and every Sunday they had the wanted ads.
Mhm.
And there was one. It was a blind ad from a retailer. They were looking for somebody who was a self-starter and had initiative, and it went on, and I said, "Oh, I guess that could be me."
Yeah.
So I applied to it, and 2 weeks later, I got the call from the human resource person, and he said, "We want to interview down in Secaucus." At that point in time, the retailer was actually Toys R Us,
Oh,
and
wow.
at that point in time, their Northeast regional office was located in Secaucus.
Okay.
So, so I ended up going into the training program, and you would train in a month in each of the stores, basically in the market.
Mhm.
You meet a lot of interesting people.
Yeah.
Um, and your responsibilities change. You see how different management styles, what works and what really doesn't work.
Yeah.
If at least for me. Um, so I worked in boys' toys. I worked in electronics. Those are the areas of the stores that I was responsible for. And then I worked one season as an assistant manager in the Totowa store, Totowa, New Jersey,
Mhm.
which was near my house. That worked out well because you work in these god awful 18-hour days,
Yeah.
during Christmas. Um, and then I was transferred as a manager to the Paramus store. And at that point, there was only one Paramus store, and it was on Route 4, and it was the main artery from New York City into New Jersey. And so
Okay.
we had a lot of shoppers from New York City area come, down that bus route.
Mhm.
And so again, you see a lot of different temperaments depending. And then I ended up being quote unquote promoted to human resources in the market.
Mhm.
And one of my areas was New York, so it included New York State as well as the boroughs.
Okay.
And I mean, the boroughs are 10, 13 miles apart from each other, and it's like three different worlds.
Yeah.
Long Island is kind of metropolitan, more so like New Jersey. Brooklyn, forget it. Brooklyn is what back that point was Brooklyn.
Yeah.
It's like the store managers gave everything back that customers gave to them.
Oh, wow.
And good, bad, or indifferent at that point in time, we took back any toy as long as we sold it. We didn't care where they bought it
Mhm.
and in what condition it was, because you had deals with the manufacturers. They took back whatever.
Sure.
But in Brooklyn, you didn't do that. And especially if you came in thinking that you were entitled and you're on your high horse, because for whatever reason, the store manager definitely would not take it back.
Right.
So But yeah, the
So don't
languages,
walk into Brooklyn Toys R Us with
uh,
the attitude, right?
especially Flatbush
Just
at that point in time.
not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah, there's one by Coney Island, which was a little bit more mellow, but Flatbush, forget.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
and then I ended up going to corporate again. People, at the local level, I mean, they could lay me off if as the years go by, the staffing decreases or increases in different areas
Right.
but of the area market.
Right.
So they didn't need three, human resource managers anymore. Since I was the last on the totem pole,
Gotcha.
they moved me into inventory control.
Okay.
And at that point, it was placing the newspaper ads for the week, for the sales and all that stuff. That was number one duty. But then I had my own sections of toys to distribute and break out to the stores as well.
Okay.
And that, because I ended up working with corporate advertising for the ads, they had a manager that was from Detroit, and he just did not get acclimated to the New York area.
Oh, wow.
And his wife wanted to go back to Detroit because that's where they came from. He was actually part Cherokee or whatever the Indian tribe in the Detroit area was.
Okay.
And so he was able to participate in their land grant for that area.
Okay.
So they moved back to Detroit, but in the meantime, I took over his job functions at corporate.
Okay.
And so I spent the next 25 years at Toys R Us corporate.
Wow. Wow.
Well, maybe it wasn't 25. It was 23-ish, 25, 26, 7 years altogether. 5 in the market, and the rest was at corporate.
So what was your favorite thing about working for Toys R Us all that time?
Wasn't the salary. It wasn't the salary at all. Retail.
That didn't win me over.
No, not at all. But they, and again, if retailers at that point, you had all the benefits included. They added as part of your salary. So you had the medical, you had the 401k, you had stock options, which at some point there were secretaries who ended up being millionaires because of the stock options they received at the founding of Toys R Us.
Yeah.
At this point, I think I worked 5 years, and then Toys R Us became public. So it was a totally different story. And you can meet your projections, but then also other departments need to meet theirs. And if they don't meet theirs, obviously meeting yours didn't really mean that. It didn't mean anything. Yeah. So you never really got rewarded the way you should have. At least I never did. Yeah. But it was a lot of interesting people, a lot of lovely people, a lot of helpful people. Giving back, I had a few people that Lorette was one of the ladies. She always wanted to work in non-for-profit, and we were doing something with I forget the non-for-profit now, but it was anyway. They were looking for somebody, and the guy came in to talk about some sort of sponsorship, and at the end he said, "Do you have anybody who might want to work here?" Because we need somebody for the New York market. Mm-hmm. And I knew she was my assistant at the time. I said, "Well, I know somebody who would love to." So she went in for an interview. She was really, really, really a smart lady and very good at Excel, which I wasn't. And she ended up getting, the job. It ended up changing her life because she ended up living in a complex near the Holland Tunnel. Mm. She actually went on a cruise because it was a promotion for her. So she was able to go on a cruise, and she met her husband on the cruise.
Oh, that's
so it was
awesome.
A total life-changing experience for her.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it when things like that happen. So you're with Toys R Us for almost 3 decades.
Yes.
And what happens after Toys R Us?
After Toys R Us, along the way, there are mass layoffs and whatever at corporate.
Yeah.
And somehow it never affected me. And then all of a sudden one day, in the book that I'm writing about this, I call it the Korean invasion, because the head of our department was Korean. And then she brought in her best friend who was Korean, who ended up being my director.
Mhm.
And friction occurs sometimes when you don't even try to make it happen that
Yeah.
way. It's just like we had a personality conflict that it's nobody's fault. We just
Yeah.
didn't, get along, I guess.
Yeah.
And so after about a year, I got called into her office one day with, and again, you have to schedule meetings. So this was not a scheduled meeting for anything.
Mhm.
And I through her window, I saw a personnel manager. I said, whoops, this is my time. I know it is. And it was, and New Jersey was never a right to work state,
Yeah.
but for their own edification and coverage, they have to give reasons why, we're letting you go. And the reasons are always, well, you did this 3 years ago. You did this 10 years. It's like, well, what did I do this year? I didn't do anything wrong this year.
Right.
So she they gave me a month, and they wanted to give me a going away party. I said, why would I do that? You fired me. I don't want to go
Right.
on away party.
Right.
So I had to end up spending that month writing all my job description, or writing a job description for what I was doing.
Right.
Everybody that I was dealing with at that point in time. I mean, you're my director. You should know this. But
Mhm.
after, to answer your question, after Toys R Us, unemployment was there again, and it was about to run out. And I saw, and again, North Star Ledger, I saw another ad in retail, looking for somebody part-time to fill in for somebody who was on maternity leave.
Mhm.
So it was Macy's, and she covered men's private brands for Macy's.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting the job. It was a temporary position. Thank God she decided not to come back. So it ended up being a full-time position.
There you go.
So I worked for Macy's in that capacity for about 7-8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, I think I was early 50s.
Mhm.
And so 8 years into it is 58. And when they did away with the manager program that covered private brands.
Okay.
So they gave you the option of doing something else, or taking their package. So I took the package.
Mhm.
But at 58, nobody wants to hire you unless you're a vice president, or a director, or something with a higher title on it.
Right.
So unemployment was about to run out again, and the person who did what I did in North Jersey and South Jersey called me and said, "Do you know unemployment will pay you to retrain in jobs that are in demand, as if you were working in a job that was no longer in demand, and advertising marketing did not come under in demand any longer."
Mhm.
So I said, "No, I didn't know that." So I talked to my local unemployment person, and at the very, very bottom, it's mostly medical background jobs, like medical billing and phlebotomy and medical assistants, office assistants of some sort. And at the very bottom was massage therapy. So they increased I always wanted to try that.
Okay.
So they increased my unemployment for another 2 months, or allow me to have unemployment for another 4 months. I'm sorry, 4 months.
Right.
Training for massage therapy was 6 months. So it kind of worked out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So you get into massage therapy, right? So you enjoyed it?
I do. You talk about massage therapy. I mean, in my opinion, they're trying to make it more than what it is. They make us go through continuing education courses. Like every 2 years in New Jersey, you renew your license, but you have to have 20 some odd continuing education courses. At some point, you cease to learn anything by these courses. There's only
Yeah.
so much that you could learn.
Right. The
About
art
the
of
body.
repetition, right?
Everything else is technique.
Yeah.
So that aside, you do meet a lot of interesting people. One thing they didn't tell you in massage school is, you know, most people want a woman therapist and not a guy therapist for whatever the reason. Um, so I worked at a Hand and Stone for 2 years, and like the average woman technician there would get maybe 6, massages a day. I would maybe get one, or if I were lucky, I would get 2.
Wow.
And even if they decided to be your regular client, they come in once a month or once every 2 months, depending on what package they had. So after 2 years, it was kind of mutual agreement that I should leave. so I left. And I do it part-time for spending money, but I feel like I am imparting some sort of energy, some sort of healing to people.
Yeah.
And it's true. I've seen the people who really know what they're doing in Ayurvedic massage and any Eastern or Asian type of therapy. Those things really, really work.
Yeah.
I mean, they're clearing the energy channel, acupuncture, acupressure, and once your energy channels are unclogged, you do feel a resurgence and a regeneration of everything, of energy, especially energy.
I agree with that. I have a deep tissue massage therapist appointment every week, literally every week out here.
Right.
Because
it came to my attention. I went to one of these continuing education classes, and the teacher said, "Did you know that Bob Hope, every day of his life, got a deep tissue massage every day without fail, and he lived to almost be 100." He said somebody else. He cited another famous. I think it was John Wayne, but John Wayne died early. But John Wayne also had a massage therapist that followed him around, and he had a massage every day. Wow. But due to his chain smoking, that was, you can't do anything about that.
Right. Well, but I'm trying to put off back surgery, so I'm managing a really bad back.
Yeah, so, you don't want to do that unless you absolutely positively.
Yeah, I'm trying to manage it. So
yeah.
I found this lady through a friend of mine that I was doing business with, and he saw me one day when I was having a really rough day with my back, and he just felt sorry for me, and so he sent me. He buys these massage therapy appointments in bulk, and so he sent me one of his as a gift. Right? He's like, "You got to try this gal. She's amazing," and I've been seeing her every week ever since. So a couple of years now. Yeah, she's an absolute blessing. So let's talk about the book for a second. So you write a book called A Life Well Lived.
Correct.
Tell us about
it. Again, Life Well Lived was basically the biography of my mother.
Right.
And I also have my first, in the toy box, the first book that talks about my experiences in the field.
Oh, okay.
And the next one I'm currently doing, if I ever get my ass up and really work on it, it is about my experiences at corporate. So
yeah. But so tell us about that. Tell us about that. So you're currently working on a new book, and right. What's the title?
In the Plastic Toy Box. The first book was in the toy box, and by the time I went to corporate, wooden toy boxes became obsolete in favor of molded plastic. So at corporate, it's in the plastic toy box. It's not that people there were plastic. Some people were, but the majority of them were not. They absolutely let you know at any point in time what they were feeling. But yeah, it's.
So you're going to talk about your experiences
at corporate, right? Yes.
So is there some advice in there? Is there something in there that, or can you not talk about it yet?
No, absolutely. I talk about the people I've met, the average everyday people I work with. I don't want to insult anybody, so I do it in a comic way, I hope.
Yeah.
The first book I didn't really use correct names, real actual names. This book I think I'm thinking of using first names.
Okay.
And those people will know who they are if they read the book.
Right.
But yeah, my job, I went in as an ad manager. It changed to marketing manager. it changed from marketing manager to branding manager. The function never changed, but the title changed.
Right.
And the problem at the end, and my reasoning for Toys R Us going down the tubes, first of all, they were purchased by 3 different companies who did it basically for the properties that we owned. But most of those and again, I don't know why they don't do the research behind it. Ended up being in areas that you would not want to go into, as a parent or a mom or whatever. Back when they were instituted, they were family areas and whatever. But now these are inner city areas or whatever. So we owned a lot of properties like that basically did not match, I guess, the sales projections of these companies. We had CEOs who were hired to do a specific job, and the hell with the overall functioning of the company. Which again is a wrong strategy for anybody, because they have their golden parachutes when they leave and everybody else has nothing. But those were the strategies back then. But as far as me, you have to make friends and contacts, and I worked with lots of movie companies, and all the reps were just wonderful people to work with. And again, they want something from you. But it was nice to feel like, they were supporting you. I met a lot of celebrities. One of my favorites is Howie Mandel, and at that point, he did 2 programs for me at Toys R Us. And the first program was when he was into the germaphobe thing and the fist bumps and all that stuff. I'm honored that he gave me a hug, a handshake, and whatever. Then the second time he did another program called Jeffrey's Reading Railroad. And it was a reading program, and we had opened the Broadway store at that point in time. So it was at the store, and he had his personal assistant that went everywhere with him. They were both wonderful people. And we walked across the street. I mean, he shook my hand when we departed and whatever, and he listened. Usually people in my position, since I'm not a director, I was never a vice president, I was just Sal. And sitting down at dinner with Sal, and he would talk about what's going on at Toys R Us. And again, he had something in the back of his mind. I guess he was trying to find out. And I look at him, and he's actually like looking at me. And that's struck me like a lot of these quote unquote celebrities, they're not really listening to what you're saying. If it wasn't what they wanted to hear. Another guy was Ed McMahon. He came to Toys R Us because he wanted to do a star search type of program at our stores.
I love Ed McMahon.
He's a wonderful guy, and he has the whole family involved in whatever he does. So his wife was there. She was, I guess, the marketing person at that point, and it was Christmas time. So I always make Christmas cookies, and I happen to have a batch, around my office. So I brought them into the meeting. He had a sampling. He loved his cookies, so he had a sampling of everything. And then we're waiting for our senior vice president of the department. At that point was a branding, vice president. So he was into branding. And I said, well, you didn't hear, I preface it, you didn't hear from me, but I think this is what you're going to hear from our vice president. Don't you know, the minute the vice president came in, yes, Al was telling me all about what we're going to hear from you today. and his wife kicked him under the table. It's like, what's wrong with you?
I love that. That's awesome, man.
So
Howie Mandel's always been one of my favorite people. I've always been a huge fan of his.
Yeah.
Cool. So in the book, you're going to talk about those things, getting.
Yeah, it's incidences like
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
I handle grand openings and grand reopenings. We change a register system in the store. We have a grand reopening. Well, nobody hell cares about your register system as long as you get them out of the store, it's competently and quickly. That's all they care about.
Yeah.
But it goes in one ear out the other. So we always had the grand reopenings and stuff. So we had to get costumes from vendors. Try to get Barbie. There was a Barbie incident again with this branding manager. So we always hired, they gave us all the Barbie costumes, but we always had to get the Barbie person to be Barbie. And at some point we used an agency in Atlanta with a wonderful lady in charge of it. And she was basically done hiring the models to be Barbie. Mm-hmm. So of course it's like $10,000 at that point to use the agency. Yeah. And then Mattel talks to our VP and said, well, we want to be responsible for hiring the models. Mm-hmm. So our $10,000 theoretically went down the tubes because then they took over hiring the models for themselves, but they used the same lady.
Oh, wow.
So she ended up getting double paid for the same, and you couldn't like talk to the people at Mattel or let them did you realize what you're doing? Yeah. This is the same lady you're going to hire. But no, so she ended up making like $25,000 of, which good for her.
Exactly.
It's like this type of stupidity that exists. It's like,
well, apparently Mattel had the money, right? So it might as well go in her pocket.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and she was and she's a wonderful lady. She's like, why are they doing this? Yeah. Why are they doing this to me? I said, I don't know. Well,
this is going to be a great book you're writing. So show us the two books. Show us A Life Well Lived and In the Toy Box. Is that right?
In the toy. This is Life Well Lived. This is my mom. Lived.
That's your mom.
Tina. Right. And In the Toy Box.
In the Toy Box. And then the new one is In the Plastic Toy Box.
Correct.
Okay. So the two that you've written are available on Amazon.
Yes.
And you're going to send us the link and we'll put it in the description. And then the third one you're writing is In the Plastic Toy Box. And it will be available once you get up off your, what you said, posterior, right? Or your right? And get it finished. Right. So I'm pulling for you, buddy. I know you'll get it finished.
I hope so.
Well, Sal, I cannot thank you enough for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. This is a lot of fun. I have thoroughly enjoyed our time together. I am so excited for you and your new book, and I'm so excited for your future. This new book's going to be really cool. I'm looking forward to it. So make sure you send us that link, and I hope you have an amazing day today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Great to meet you. We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out Calendly.com/Rio760.